Before Pythagoras was even born, before Greece had built its marble temples, before Rome had laid a single stone, a man sat beneath the Indian sky, drawing lines in the dust, and discovered one of the greatest mathematical truths in human history. His name was Baudhayana, and the world forgot him. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, I am going to reveal something about this man's work that will shake everything you thought you knew about the history of mathematics, something that most textbooks will never ever tell you. Welcome, or welcome back, to Numbers and Narratives by Blessright. This is the channel where we don't just talk about numbers, we uncover the souls behind them. We dig beneath the polished surface of history and pull out the raw, beating truth that has been buried for centuries. If you are new here, and do me one favor before we begin, hit that subscribe button right now, because the story I'm about to tell you is not taught in schools. It is not printed on the cover of any mainstream mathematics book, but it is real. It happened, and it deserves to be heard. And stay, please stay, until the very end of this video, because I have saved the most striking, the most jaw-dropping detail of Baudhayana's story for the final moments. You do not want to miss it. Trust me on this. Now, let us go back, way, way back, to a time before the modern world had a name for genius. Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine ancient India, somewhere between 800 BCE and 200 BCE. Scholars debate the exact timeline, but what is not debated is this. The Vedic civilization was alive, pulsing, intellectually fierce. Sacred fires burned at dawn. Priests chanted hymns that had been passed down for generations. And in the middle of all this, in the middle of ritual and religion and the deep hum of the cosmos, there were men who were also scientists, men who looked at the world and asked, how does this work? Why does this fit together? What are the hidden rules beneath the visible surface? Baudhayana was one of these men. We do not know his face. We do not know the exact year he was born or the exact day he died. We do not have a portrait hanging in any museum. History, cruelly, has swallowed his personal details whole. But what history could not swallow, what survived against all odds through thousands of years of invasion, fire, translation, and neglect, is his work. His extraordinary, revolutionary, breathtaking work. He wrote what are called the Baudhayana Sulbasutras. Say that slowly with me. Sulbasutras. It means roughly rules of the cord or rules of the rope. And already, just from the name, you should feel something stir inside you. Because these were not abstract academic exercises. These were practical instructions. Instructions for how to build. You see, in Vedic India, fire altars, called yajnas, were sacred beyond measure. The shape of an altar was not a matter of aesthetics. It was a matter of cosmic order. Build it wrong, and you insulted the divine. Build it right, and you aligned yourself with the very architecture of the universe. And so, with enormous precision, Baudhayana wrote down the geometry required to build these altars correctly. He wrote down how to construct squares and rectangles, how to transform one shape into another of equal area, how to divide a circle, how to calculate the diagonal of a rectangle. And then, he wrote down something that would echo through the centuries like thunder. He described in clear and unmistakable Sanskrit the relationship between the sides of a right-angled triangle and its hypotenuse. Let that sink in. He described what we today call the Pythagorean Theorem. But here is where the emotion of this story truly begins, because the man whose name now adorns that theorem, Pythagoras of Samos, was born around 570 BCE. And the Baudhayana Sulbasutras? They are dated, conservatively, even by cautious Western scholars, to around 800 BCE. Some Indian scholars place them even earlier, closer to 1200 BCE. Do you understand what that means? It means Baudhayana walked this intellectual territory, this exact mathematical ground, centuries before Pythagoras was born. Not years, centuries. And yet, every school child on earth learns it as the Pythagorean Theorem. Every geometry textbook carries that name. And the name Baudhayana? It barely whispers through the halls of mathematical history. How does that happen? How does a man who was first get erased? The answer is painful, and it is important. When Western scholars began cataloging the history of mathematics in the 18th and 19th centuries, they operated within a particular framework. Greece was the birthplace of reason. Greece was the cradle of logic. Everything before Greece, or outside of Greece, was considered folklore, mythology, pre-science. When they encountered the Sulbasutras, many dismissed them as mere priestly instruction manuals, not real mathematics, not rigorous, not formal. But here is the devastating irony of that dismissal. Baudhayana's sutras are rigorous. They are precise. They describe geometric constructions that work, constructions that have been verified by modern mathematicians again and again. In the Baudhayana Sulbasutra, the statement reads something like this: the diagonal of a rectangle produces by itself both the areas which the two sides of the rectangle produce separately. That is the Pythagorean Theorem, in plain, clear mathematical language, written long before the man Greece would later celebrate had drawn his first breath. But let us not just talk about what Baudhayana proved. Let us feel who he was. Imagine him, a man of the ancient world, sitting perhaps near the banks of a great river, the air thick with the smell of sacred wood smoke. He has no calculator, no computer, no peer-reviewed journal waiting to publish his findings. He has rope. He has stakes. He has the ground beneath his feet and the stars above his head. And he has a mind that refuses to stop asking why. He takes his rope. He stretches it across the ground. He constructs a right angle. He measures. He notices the relationship. He records it. And not just that, he goes further. He also gives approximate values. In his Sulbasutras, Baudhayana offers an approximation for the square root of 2. He writes it as 1 plus 1/3 plus 1/4 of 1/3 minus 1/34 of that fourth, which when calculated gives 1.4142156, accurate to 5 decimal places. The actual value of the square root of 2 is 1.41421356. The difference is in the 7th decimal place. 7 decimal places of accuracy. With a rope and the human mind, no telescope, no algorithm, just thought, pure discipline, burning human thought. And then there is the matter of pi. Baudhayana also gave approximations for pi, the ratio of a circle's circumference to its diameter. He gave multiple approximations depending on the precision required. This was not crude guessing. This was systematic mathematical thinking, centuries before Archimedes of Greece would attempt the same computation and receive all the glory for it in Western textbooks. Are you beginning to feel the weight of what was lost, the weight of what was buried? Because this is not just mathematics. This is a story about power, about who gets to own knowledge, about which cultures are deemed worthy of intellectual legacy and which are quietly written out of the story. Think about this. The Sulbasutras also contain instructions for constructing altars in the shape of a falcon, a bird taking flight, and in the shape of a chariot wheel. These were not simple shapes. These were complex geometric constructions requiring the combination of different areas, the transformation of shapes, the use of irrational numbers. The people building these altars were not reading from a children's book. They were executing advanced geometry. Every priest who laid the bricks of a Vedic fire altar was, in a very real sense, doing applied mathematics. And Baudhayana gave them the tools to do it. He gave them more than tools, actually. He gave them a system, a systematic approach to geometry that was elegant, that was useful, that was, and this word must be spoken clearly, original. Now, I want to pause here for a moment, because some people, when they hear stories like this, become angry. Rightfully so. And some people, on the other side, become defensive. They say, but Greek mathematics was still remarkable. And yes, it was. This is not a story about tearing down one civilization to lift up another. This is a story about completeness, about truth, about making sure that the full, beautiful, complicated tapestry of human intellectual history is seen, not just the few brightly colored threads that Western academia chose to highlight. Every culture that has thought deeply, every mind that has wrestled with the mystery of the universe, deserves to have its name spoken. Baudhayana deserves to have his name spoken. And I want to speak it loudly today, because here is something else that most people do not know. Baudhayana was not a lone genius working in isolation. He was part of a tradition. The Sulbasutras are a family of texts, Baudhayanas being the oldest and most comprehensive, followed by the Baudhayana Sulbasutras, the Pythagorean Sulbasutras, and others. This means there was a community of mathematical thinkers in ancient India, passing knowledge from generation to generation, refining it, testing it, building on it. A mathematical school centuries before Plato's academy was even imagined. Let that image settle in your mind. A school of mathematical thought in ancient India, centuries before Greece had its academy. And yet here we are, still calling it the Pythagorean Theorem. The grief of that, the intellectual grief of that, is real. It is not melodrama. It is the honest response to a historical injustice that has shaped how billions of people understand the origins of human knowledge. But here is what I want you to hold on to. Even in the grief, the knowledge itself survived. Baudhayana's sutras were written down in Sanskrit, copied by scribes, protected by tradition, and eventually rediscovered by modern scholars who recognized their significance. The work did not die. It could not die, because truth has a way of enduring, even when the man who discovered it is forgotten, even when the world is not ready to give him credit. Baudhayana was ready. He was always ready. He knew the truth. He wrote it down, and he trusted, perhaps without even knowing it, that one day someone would read it and understand. You are reading it now. In a sense, through this video, and through these words, you are that someone, and I think that matters. Now, I promised you something at the beginning. I promised you a detail that would stop you in your tracks, a detail that most people, even people who know Baudhayana's name, have never fully absorbed. Here it is. In the Baudhayana Sulbasutra, there is a construction for transforming a circle into a square of equal area, the ancient problem known as squaring the circle. For millennia, mathematicians obsessed over this problem. It was considered one of the great unsolvable challenges of mathematics. Archimedes attempted it. Medieval European scholars lost sleep over it. It was finally proven impossible in 1882 by the German mathematician Ferdinand von Lindemann, who showed that pi is a transcendental number, meaning no finite algebraic equation can exactly capture it. But here is what makes Baudhayana extraordinary, beyond even what we have already discussed. He knew it was an approximation. He did not claim to have perfectly squared the circle. He gave a constructive approximation, a method that gets you remarkably close. And he was honest about its approximate nature. In an era when intellectual humility was rare, when claiming divine authority for your knowledge was common and convenient, Baudhayana distinguished between what was exact and what was approximate. He understood the difference between a perfect mathematical truth and a useful practical construction. That is not the thinking of a primitive priest following ritual instructions. That is the thinking of a scientist, a real, genuine, honest to the cosmos scientist, thousands of years before the word scientist existed. Baudhayana, remember that name. Say it out loud right now if you need to. Say it so it lives in the air around you, because it has been silent for far too long. And that is the story of Baudhayana, a man who drew lines in the dust of ancient India and changed the course of mathematical thought, a man whose work survived millennia and whose name deserves to be spoken in every classroom, in every geometry lesson, in every conversation about the roots of human knowledge. If this story moved you, if it made you angry or proud or curious or emotional, then do something with that feeling. Hit the like button. Share this video with someone who loves history or mathematics or truth. You drop a comment below telling me what struck you most about Baudhayana's story, and subscribe to Numbers and Narratives by Blessright, because this is what we do here. We find the forgotten. We name the nameless. We tell the stories that numbers carry inside them. I am Blessright. And until next time, keep counting, keep questioning, and never stop asking who came first.